claim to fame is my niece was a childhood friend of Joe's. They were
Yeah, in Rhode Island, right?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I did mention it.
Oh yeah, because she grew up in
Why I miss it.
yeah.
Both got into music, and one was a little more successful than the other.
It's my seat.
Let the record reflect we have reconvened with all members present. Note that council members Bob Landrigan and John Forte are absent, excused tonight. For those who are able, I invite you to join. Please rise as we do the bless you, and I ask you to remain standing after the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a moment to remember longtime Madison residents we lost over the past few weeks. Colleen Castellano, longtime Madison resident, passed away on July 27th after a courageous battle with cancer. She was 53. This one touched me extra closely because that was the age my mother died of cancer. So I know how the family feels. Colleen is survived by her beloved husband of 24 years, Christopher, her son Connor, and her father Dennis, her brother and sister, and their respective spouses. She was born in 1970 in Tacoma, Washington, where her father was stationed in the United States Air Force. They settled in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. She had attended the University of Maine, and while in college, she met her future husband, Chris. They married on July 10th, 1999, settled here in Madison. She had a long and fulfilling career in advertising and e-commerce and served on the board of the Madison Soccer Club and was involved with the Madison Education Fund. Also to remember Helen Vanderzee, lifelong Madison resident, passed away on the 24th, age 92, survived by her children Warren, Maria Elena, and their respective spouses, 6 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Her husband of 45 years, Warren, died in 1999. She was born January 1931 to the late Anthony and Consuela Laporta, born right on North Street in Madison, just 2 doors down from the house where she would happily live for her next 90 years. She met her future husband, Warren, at the roller rink. It's been common this year. And the couple married in 1954. She began working at Kraft Foods after getting married and becoming a line operator at Ciba-Geigy Novartis in Summit until her retirement. She was active at church every Sunday morning, either at St. Vincent Martyr or Holy Family. And then Linda Massaro, a longtime Madison resident, died on August 3rd, also losing a battle with cancer. She was 64, survived by her longtime love and partner, Tony DeCaro, her parents, Martin and Elaine Schweingard, and 2 sisters, Joanne and Patty, her cherished stepchildren, Dan, Tony, and Joelle. Born in 1959, grew up in West Orange, and has lived in Madison for the last 30 years and was a friendly fixture at the local Quick Check, where she took great pride in taking care of her customers. She was also a proud member of the Elks Club. And then Mary Margaret Peggy Kilcoyne, longtime Madison resident, died on July 29th, at age 86, survived by her 4 children, James, Brendan, Courtney, and Kathleen, and her respective spouses, and 7 grandchildren. Her husband, Neil, previously passed, as well as her daughter, Mallory, and her sister, Nancy. Born in Ohio in 1937, also raised in Ohio, proud graduate of Ohio State University, where she received a bachelor's degree in home economics. She went on to become a writer for Ohio Farmer magazine, and later a public school teacher right here in New Jersey. She was an active member of Thursday Morning Club and at the Madison Community House and volunteered for Meals on Wheels. And then also want to remember two great friends of Madison. Ed Lloyd, who is known as an environmental litigator, activist, and scholar, passed away on August 5th. Ed was director of Environmental Law Clinic at Columbia University from 2000 to 2022, and he has been working with the Friends of the Drew Forest, providing legal support in their effort to help save the forest. His numerous affiliations include being appointed by Governor McGreevey to serve in the Pinelands Commission, where he outlasted many attempts to replace him for stands he had taken against incursions into the Pinelands aquifers. Very appropriate for his work with Drew Forest. Ed also leaves his wife of 41 years, Janine Bauer, an attorney who is working with our Historic Preservation Committee, and he also leaves two children. And let us also honor Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. So much has been said already about Lieutenant Governor, so let us remember that she's been so much more than the first African American to be Assembly Speaker or to hold statewide office. She was a leader, period. She cared about her state, putting New Jersey over political gain, and she was a great friend to Madison, joining us at a reorganization meeting and supporting the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, coming in person to present a grant check, and she was honored by the museum a few years ago. So I want to thank Sheila Oliver for making our state a better place for all. So let us take a moment to remember Colleen Castellano, Colleen Vanderzee, Linda Massaro, Peggy Kilcoyne, Ed Lloyd, and Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. And now let us pass our thoughts on to the families and friends they leave behind. Thank you. Can I have a motion for the executive minutes of June 26, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Already discussed, all in favor?
Aye.
And a motion for the regular minutes of June 26, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion for the executive minutes of July 24, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And a motion for the regular minutes of July 24, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Get it. Water? So welcome all to our only meeting for the month of August. And it's kind of scary that we're already halfway through August, so where did our summer go? Our next meeting after this one will be on September 11th. And I see Kathy Cacaval in the audience, so I want to thank you for advocating and for the purchase of more bike racks in town, making sure our bicyclists that visit our parks have somewhere to put their bike and secure them nicely. So we ordered 7 new bike racks, and they've been either have already been put together or in the process, and they'll be put in various parks, including Summerhill Park, 2 locations, Memorial Park, multiple locations, and at the MRC at multiple locations. So, Kathy, thank you for continuing to advocate for bicyclists. And a couple of things that happened over the last few weeks. Friday 28th, we had our annual Summer Intern Appreciation Lunch. This is for the incredible crew of college students that work with us over the summertime. They come here and learn quite a bit about the ins and outs of borough government, but we also learn from them, and they provide incredible, high quality and valuable work for all our residents. And as many know, on August 1st, we had the annual National Night Out, and we'll probably hear more in reports. This year was the first fully centralized event occurring on Waverly Place, and it was an incredible evening, even the weather cooperating. It gave Madison a chance to show off our great police department, especially their commitment to community policing. I want to thank the officers who organized a great event and recognize the strong leadership of Chief Misha that encourages community policing at its best. And related to that, I want to thank the PBA Leadership and Negotiating Committee for reaching an unprecedented 6-year labor agreement with the borough. We will be ratifying that agreement under a consent agenda later in the meeting. And then last Tuesday, we had Madison resident Paul Morgan was in the room as part of the production video to support our grant application for the Drew Forest, the Morris County Open Space Fund. They used to do on-site visits, but stopped those during the pandemic and have kept the practice of having a video put together. So he had already recorded video on location in the forest and was here to record Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill and State Senator Anthony Bucco and yours truly, which will be the audio portion of the video. We greatly appreciate the support of the Congresswoman and the Senator for taking time out and to continually support our application. And speaking of state senators, among the many who were surprised to hear of the retirement of Governor Dick Cody at the end of his term.
Oh, wow.
He has served longer than anyone else in Trenton with over 50 years of service, so he will leave quite a legacy behind, including supporting Madison so well for the past 12 years that we were in the 27th state legislative district. And as he said, I will paraphrase a little bit, any rumors that he was dying, he said, to clarify, I'm not dying, but if you know anyone who is dying, I'm in the funeral home business, so please give me a call. So he's at the top of his game as ever, and will probably head into retirement with that sense of humor. But Gov, best to you in retirement, and I thank you all that you have done for our state and for Madison. And lastly, the Employee of the Month is our own Borough Clerk. To my left, Liz Osborne. While the registrar was out on unexpected and extended sick leave, Liz quickly learned the job and covered for her for a very busy wedding season, which can be a stressful time if you're trying to get a license quickly. And she did all this in addition to keeping up to her regular workload. So Liz, thank you very much, and congratulations on Employee of the Month. All right, and we now move on to reports from committees. Community Affairs, Council President Hoover.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Downtown Development Commission and the Director of Business Development, Bottle Hill Day will be held on Saturday, October 7th, this fall. Sponsorship and vendor information has been published and is available on Rosenet. Please visit all the terrific vendors at the Madison Farmers Market on Thursday at Dodge Field from 1 to 6 p.m. The season continues to November 16th and will feature live music weekly. The Downtown Concert Series held at the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts will continue with Rosewood on Friday, August 18th. The concerts are from 6 to 8 p.m. Please bring your chair and plan to have dinner or dessert downtown. The Chamber of Commerce. August Sidewalk Sales Day are from August 24th through September 2nd. The Madison Car Show is scheduled for Saturday, October 7th. There will be no rain date. If anyone is interested in advertising on Nautilus Placemat, please contact Karen Giambra at madisonchamber@gmail.com. The Taste of Madison is scheduled for Monday, March 4th at the Madison Hotel. From the Madison Community Arts Center, the 5th outdoor concert on the Rose Pavilion is Forbidden Tropics, an Afro-Peruvian jazz band featuring Alejandro Atokcusi on Friday, August 7th, from 6 to 8 p.m. Events will be moved indoors in the event of rain. 4 concerts have been held so far, and an average attendance is around 100 people. The final concert features Pyrenesia, a gypsy jazz band, on September 8th. The next open mic is Comedy Open Mic, which will take place on August 16th at 8 p.m. The new music showcase, Come Original, will take place on Saturday, August 19th at 8 p.m. From January 1st, 2023 through today, 428 individual scheduled events have been attended by 11,159 people at the Art Center. Over 2,500 hours of programming has occurred with a projected amount of 3,750 hours for 2023. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, and if you have finance for John
I do. Thank you, Mayor.
Zorlik.
The engineering department reports that 2 projects this summer have been completed. The sewer lining construction project will be complete by the end of this month, and the road resurfacing project to mill and overlay at Woodland, Garfield, and Myrtle have been those have been resurfaced, and primary traffic striping is done, and final tasks will also be completed this month. Over at the MRC, the new multi-purpose courts for basketball and pickleball are well underway. The subgrade has been prepped. Electrical conduit and foundations, drainage conduit inlets, all of this subgrade work has been completed. And the goal is to have the project to be in an advanced state of completion with the limits secured prior to the start of school on September 5th. So making good progress there. At Green Avenue, the pedestrian crosswalk work has been completed with sidewalk ramps, curbs, and drainage improvements. And at Memorial Park, the trail construction is still in progress. The footbridge, boardwalk, and trails, I don't have an estimated date of completion here, but in the meantime, another grant application has been submitted for another phase of work connecting the recently completed footbridge at Delbarton Trail to the Main Street Shopping Plaza. Public Works reports that they did a great walkthrough for the green infrastructure assessment that we obtained through the PSE&G grant award. Public Works met with Sustainable Madison Advisory Committee and other residents and volunteers to tour various sites in the borough to see where we could improve drainage and stormwater infiltration through green infrastructure improvements. The department head, Ken O'Brien, reports that some of the proposed solutions are for long-term repairs and some are more short-term, and he mentioned a couple areas of interest that they'll be working on in the coming weeks to see better drainage and runoff in parking areas such as the MRC. DPW repainted all the green lines that indicate EV charging stations throughout the borough. And as a reminder to residents, we are encouraged to use the app called See-Click-Fix to identify problems and notify Public Works if you see a problem, whether it's a pothole or overgrown shrubs or any other kind of issue in town. This is an app that can be downloaded to your phone. It's available 24/7, and you can make a report without having to phone DPW. I have a report from the Madison Environmental Commission. The MEC is a co-sponsor of the Friends of the Madison Public Library's Home and Garden Tour coming up next month on September 10th from 12 to 4 p.m. Tickets are $50 and are available for purchase on the Friends of the Madison Public Library website. The tour will feature houses of all styles, including 5 cutting-edge energy efficiency homes. And the tour will also include native plant gardens by professional landscape designers. Toadshade Wildflower Farm will have a table that was a big hit at the Spring Green and Clean event. They'll be hosting a native plant sale. The sale is open now. The plant sale is open to ticket holders and to the general public, and plants can be pre-ordered at toadshade.com. On behalf of Councilmember Forte, I'm going to provide an update from the Tax, Finance, and Administration departments. The Tax Department notes that tax bills were mailed out on July 21st. If you have not received your tax bill, you can call the tax collector's office to request a copy. The third quarter grace period has been extended to August 31st. Tax payments must be received by 4:30 p.m. on August 31st, or property owners will be charged interest back to August 1st. The Finance Department reports that we have 2 significant bank wires going out. The first is a $3,941,111.67 bill payment to the Madison Board of Education. That represents their monthly allocation of property taxes collected. This is a reminder that 62.3% of every dollar collected by the borough in property taxes goes to support the good work done at our local schools. Personally, I thought the insert that we received in the mail that describes what our public schools do and how they get their great work done was a great addition to our annual leaflet that goes out explaining the tax bill. So I was really glad to see that included this year. The second payment from the Finance Department is $264,615, which is the principal and interest on the debt for the MRC land purchase and the turf field complex. Those funds come out of the Open Space Historic Preservation and Recreation Trust Fund. This year, we will collect about $650,000 in local Open Space Trust Fund dollars, and almost half of those funds are dedicated to the debt payments for the MRC land and the turf field. After tomorrow's principal payment, we will have $1,851,000 in remaining principal, which we paid down over the next 10 years. And from the administration, this evening we'll have a presentation on a pilot program for time-of-use electric rates. The borough has been working towards this goal for almost a decade, and it's an exciting step, in my opinion, to be bringing our utility billing system into the modern time-of-use rates framework that many utilities across the country offer. The installation of our automated smart electric meters was an important first step, and now we're getting ready to take the next step and offer electric rates that are lower during off-peak times and higher during peak times. This is important for cutting carbon pollution, it's important for PJM, which is our regional grid operator, and it's important for Madison's distribution system. This is a complex topic, and as such, administration is advocating that we implement a pilot program where residents can opt into the new electric rate structure. We know that EVs and electrification are coming, and they will be proliferating in the years to come. And so we need to be forward-thinking and educate Madison Electric customers and prepare our local distribution system for how we can accommodate the increased loads for electrification. I'm looking forward to the presentation, and that's all for administration.
Thank you. Public safety, and I don't know if you have utilities for Mr. Lanigan, but Mr. Range.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. We'll start with the utilities. From the Water Department, 2 leaking main valves on Park Avenue were excavated and repaired according to the New Jersey DEP Water Quality Accountability Act. 1 water service was renewed on Park Avenue according to the WQQA of New Jersey, replacing an older lead and galvanized service connection with a copper one. Fire hydrants are being painted throughout the borough to the AWW standards for flow. And here you learn something new every day. Those colors actually mean something, folks. Green fire hydrants have a flow rate of 1,000 gallons per minute or more. Yellow fire hydrants, 500 to 1,000 gallons per minute. And red are 500 gallons per minute or less. The JIF, the borough's risk insurance company, inspected the 5 wells and 2 tanks. Minor signage infractions were cited and some overgrown trees were trimmed, and the water department made the necessary changes to come into compliance. Water department would also like to remind residents and businesses that watering your lawn during the high summer hours wastes about 50% of the water that you put out of your hose or your irrigation due to evaporation. It is significant to the water average lawn. It is sufficient to water the average lawn only twice a week. Please remember, it is also our drinking water that you're sprinkling on your lawn. From the electric utility, the standby crew has been very busy the last several weeks again. On the 24th of July, the standby crew was called out for half power on Lee Avenue, caused by a bad tap on the secondary. On July 25th, a severe rain, wind, and lightning storm swept through Madison in the afternoon, causing power outages and line damage. The entire department worked until 7 p.m. repairing cable, refusing sections, and removing branches from wires. Standby crew was called out again that day at 10:30 p.m. for partial power on Station Road. On the 27th, the standby crew was called out to respond to substation alarms, where the feeder line had tripped out. The crew was called out again later that day at 9:53 p.m. due to a downed wire on Madison Avenue. On the 28th, standby crew was called to Bellow Avenue for an electrical issue. On August 2nd, the standby crew was called to, missing a street there, but to respond to a tree branch falling and repairing a wire off a house. On the 3rd, the crew was called out to inspect a utility pole on Danforth at Beach Avenue, which had been struck by a car that had rolled over. On the 5th at 7 a.m., the standby crew responded to no power call to a blown fuse caused by a squirrel. The homeowner was advised to call JCP&L, who provides services to that particular address. After responding to a power outage, the standby crew then went to Drew University to their annual scheduled system shutdown, which allows Drew to complete preventative maintenance on their substation. The crew restored full power to Drew at 2 p.m. And finally, on that day, the standby crew responded to branches on a wire on Prospect Street. So you can see our electric utility continues to do great work for us all around the clock to make sure that we keep the lights on. And from the police department, earlier this month, as the mayor noted, we had National Night Out, which took place on August 1st. We saw over 1,000 visitors throughout the night in the center of town on Waverly Place. Really excited to see all the residents and visitors of Madison join forces in making it a memorable night. On behalf of Chief Misha, I want to thank the fellow governing body members and the borough administration for supporting the department and helping us have a wonderful evening. Lastly, a big shout out to all of our residents who always show the department and our officers the utmost respect and admiration. The Madison Police Department and the Traffic Safety Bureau are looking for school crossing guards for this upcoming school year. So they are still taking applications. You can visit rosenet.org/jobs for more information or contact the Police Traffic Safety Bureau at 973-593-3035. And speaking of the start of school, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks here, the Traffic Safety Division recently conducted a survey of school zones and routes to ensure that those that travel to school by car, bike, or by their feet have the safest experience possible. And lastly, tonight from the fire department, for the month of July, the fire department responded to 36 general alarms, 21 still alarms, conducted 28 investigations, 37 EMS calls, and that's a total of 122 calls for the month of July. Fire department, Fire Prevention Bureau also conducted 87 inspections. The fire department also participated in National Night Out earlier this month and had a good time cooking the hot dogs for the visitors to Waverly Place. Kudos to the police department from the fire department for pulling together such a great event that everybody attended. And lastly tonight, just a reminder that volunteers are greatly needed for both the Madison Fire Department and the Madison Ambulance Corps. These volunteers, along with our paid professional firefighters and police, are critical to these organizations, allowing the borough to continue to deliver high-quality emergency services. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, either for the first aid squad or the fire department, please visit rosenet.org for more information on how to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I did learn something with the fire hydrants. I always thought they were just painted Madison green, so you learned something new. It is good to see that. I think all our hydrants are green in Madison. And moving on to health, Mr. Alan Putis.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council, visitors. Short report. We have some health education happening around town. There's communications now with the school administration and the new leadership requesting a meeting this week where we're going to be discussing programming related to anti-vaping. We're going to have a new initiative. We are updating the borough ordinance with one chapter that's going to have some violation schedules for students that get caught vaping on school property. But the goal is to educate them as to the harms that occur in their bodies from vaping, and also to let them know what the penalties can be when they get caught. There's a state agent named Dave Gerlitz. He calls himself the Winston Man. He has turned into an anti-smoking advocate, an author of a book called Before the Smokescreen, and we are going to get him to come and speak to the to public schools, the junior school and the high school, when school starts. Hopefully, he will help educate a few students and stop some of the vaping that they're doing around school and in the community. We are also organizing with the Madison Chatham Coalition Coordinator at the Madison YMCA for teen mental health first aid implementation in the fall. It's a 6-session program, 1 per week, and it's going to be preparing teens to look out for warning signs for mental health issues among their peers, as well as resources that are available to them. The high school students who are enrolled in the YMCA sports programs will be the initial participants for this pilot program. There's 2 staff members who will be trained to implement Strengthening Families program, and that will initiate in the spring of 2024. It's a 9 to 12-week program for teens and parents. And we're also preparing the Board of Health newsletter for September, which will include information on Alzheimer's treatment around the community. On the nursing side, we had a monthly blood pressure screening. It's voluntary, it's free, at the Madison Health Department, July 18th. We had a whopping 2 people show up, but it's there. Maybe the message will get out that anybody who wants to check their blood pressure monthly gets to go there for free. We had 1 salmonella case in Madison and 1 STEC case, which is an acronym that I didn't know what it meant. It said E. coli. So we had 1 E. coli case. I guess you get that from eating, but I don't know how that showed up. So other than that, there was no other reports of any outbreaks, no COVID, nothing to worry about right now. We are preparing for flu season. We'll have flu shots for the community in the late fall. Environmentally, there's some property maintenance investigations going on. We're trying to remediate them with the homeowners, and the Board of Health is very active in making sure that the community takes care of the private spaces and public spaces. And last, we had hired 2 interns to work this summer and do a pet census to try and find out if people are registering their dogs, licensing their dogs. So they hit all 12 zones in town. They had a map with people who had previously registered dogs and maybe didn't re-register. So they were able to find 53 homes with 1-year licenses, 26 homes that got 3-year licenses. They only came up with 79 dogs in the census. So I don't think a lot of people were opening their doors, unfortunately, because there's probably a lot of dogs in town since COVID, and cats. We only came up with a total of 8 cats in our census. So I'm not really sure if we got the best information. But these 2 young ladies were very diligent. They made a cool PowerPoint slide at the end talking about how they approached homeowners. They were very sensitive to what people wanted to disclose. So it's something that was good that we did it for the community, and we got a few people to register their pets out of it. That's it, Mayor. Everybody else is healthy.
Thank you very much. What's going on? Move on to communications and petitions.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and Council received a letter dated August 8th from Corey Ruffleson of Green Village Road regarding an appeal of a planning board approval for minor subdivision at 133 Green Village Road.
All right, now we move on to our first of 2 invitations for public comment. This one is restricted to our agenda discussion item or the resolutions. If you want to comment on any other topic, we will have another invitation a little bit later in the meeting, so hold those thoughts until then. If you do comment on this one, you will step up to the lectern, state your name and address, write the same on the clipboard. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but we do give you a 1-minute grace period, and we'll stop you at 4. And these are the items you may comment on in this period. We are having that already mentioned electric utility time of use rates discussion, And we have quite a few resolutions, so please bear with me as I go through all of them. Resolution 221 is authorizing the collective bargaining agreement with Madison Police Benevolent Association, local number 92. And this goes retroactively to January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2027, as mentioned, 6 years. Resolution 222 is appointing Brian Allen to position of substitute crossing guard. And if that name sounds familiar, he's a recently retired firefighter for Madison. So as was mentioned, we need crossing guards. If you're recently retired, that's a perfect job. Resolution 223 is appointing Travis Benway to position of Public Safety Telecommunications Officer at the annual salary of $45,000. Resolution 224 is ratifying the appointment of intern Devin Liskovitz as a part-time paid intern for the police department. He had been working as a volunteer, will remain on at $16 an hour. Resolution 225 is awarding construction contract for Madison Well B facility improvement to VNL Inc. in the amount of $914,000, and this is funded through ordinances 31-2022 and 41-2023. Resolution 226 is rejecting the submissions for the 2023 Cook Avenue parking lot reconstruction project and rebid and authorizing negotiations. The lowest responsible bidder substantially exceeded the cost estimate. Resolution 227 is amending professional service contract for Madison Library interior renovation services to Akari and Iovino Architects. And this has been amended to increase it by $30,000 for enhanced professional inspection services for a total of $270,000. Resolution 228 is awarding professional services contract to Asplund Engineering Services for an arc flash hazard study in the amount not to exceed $48,400, and this is for both substations at Kings Road and James Park. Resolution 229, 2023 is ratifying the execution of developers agreement with Akbar Mosque Inc. for the development of 120 Madison Avenue for the mosque, previously approved by the Planning Board. Resolution 230, 2023 is granting Turn the Town Teal permission to tie ribbons on trees from September 1 through September 30th in support of their Turn the Town's Teal campaign to fight ovarian cancer. Resolution 231 is authorizing the 38th annual Geralda Farms Run on Sunday, November 12th. Resolution 232 is authorizing special event permit to allow use of public parking lot number 1, aka Prospect parking lot by Rotary Club for a public shredding event on September 30th. Resolution 233 is authorizing participation in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee event to be held on September 9th, right in front of Hartley Dodge. Resolution 234 is authorizing execution of settlement agreement and mutual release with Midwest Construction. This is the company that did the reconstruction of Glenwild in 2020. Resolution 235 is resolution awarding bid for new 2022 Ford Explorer hybrid police admin vehicle to Nielsen Ford. And this is the amount of $57,155 for a police outside duty trust fund. And resolution 236 is a Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicle to Nielsen Ford for $50,303, and this is being funded also through the Police Outside Duty Trust Fund. Resolution 237 awarding Water Department materials bid to Capital Supply Construction Products, LLC, the amount of $15,391, and Ferguson Water Works for the amount of $17,505, and this is funded through the operations budget. Resolution 238 is authorizing the application of provision subtitle 1, title 39, revised statutes to 14 Main Street. This is the parking lot behind the old YMCA next to Cook Avenue parking lot. This is part of an agreement for future use of the parking lot during the Cook Avenue construction. This will allow enforcement of parking violations there. Resolution 239 is approving a raffle license for the Madison Education Fund for October 7th. Resolution 240 is also a raffle for a Rotary Club, and that drawing is on December 19th. Resolution 241 is the Madison High School PTSO raffle on October 1st, 2023. Resolution 242 is authorizing a grant agreement with the Madison Public Library, and we are providing a grant towards their renovation projects that's also being funded through state funds and other sources, and this is to the amount of $450,000, and this is to confirm the agreement on that authorization. Resolution 243 is then awarding the Public Library interior renovation bid to Daskell LLC in the amount of $2,048,000 plus alternate bid of $184,000 for floor finishes. Resolution 244 is a change in our insertion of the budget of $29,351.42. And Resolution 245 is also another item, insertion of revenue budget of $6,610 related to a Municipal Alliance grant. So there's quite a few. If you kept track of those, you can comment on any of those resolutions or the electric utility time of use rates. Anyone else wishing to comment on those, please step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we now move on to agenda discussions. Jim Burnett, our CFO, will cover, and along with Jim Trimble.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll make this brief. We've talked about this a number of times. The presentation will be available on Rosenet. First, I want to thank the staff, the volunteers, a few people here, Mariana Hennessy-Jones, and Peter Freed, and David Cohen, and various staff that helped us develop this program and kind of gather our thoughts on this. We created a white paper, circulated it around, and as our first thoughts say, if you'd advance the slide, Michael, we're recommending a voluntary pilot program, and the goal is to be revenue neutral. I'm going to repeat that. We're recommending a voluntary pilot program, and the goal is to be revenue neutral. I think that's the most important thing. A simple summary, what is time of use? If you go to the next slide, Michael, you'll see that curve. That's a curve throughout the day. More electricity is consumed during the day than the evening. It costs us and the grid more money during the day for that electricity as opposed to the same kilowatt hour in the evening. And so we are looking to create time of use rates that would have a different electric rate at different times of the day and the week and the month. And the benefits are that it reduces the borough's electric capacity and transmission costs. It reduces stress on our local grid as well as the regional grid, and their environmental and educational benefits. The next page I'm not going to talk about, but this was directly from the white paper talking about in more detail those benefits. So we'll go to the next slide, and Jim, you want to talk for a few minutes about the meters?
Yeah, meter stuff, that's probably me. So typically you think about an electric meter, it just counts one number, your consumption. The new electric meters that we've installed have 5 different buckets, tiers. We're going to be using 4 of them. The way we do that is we use our AMI company pushes this information remotely out to the meters. They can do it to any ones we choose. That's how we're going to do a pilot, or how we've been doing a pilot program. We just selected certain houses that we wanted to see how this would read. They have different registers, like we said. Think about a odometer in your car. We can set the times to say whatever we want. This is our peak, this is our off-peak, this is our regular times, and it pushes that to the meters, and they will start counting in those times, which would obviously not be possible to do without the AMI meters. Do you want to go back to the
Sure.
peak
Yeah,
stuff?
so this very briefly shows when the peaks occur. And the data is from 2008 to 2022. HE stands for hour ending. I should have changed it. It's just kind of a utility thing. So HE15 military time is the hour ending at 3 p.m. If you look at the yellow highlights, you'll see that the peaks are typically happening at the hour ending 5 p.m., so the time from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. or 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I don't think I would have just intuitively thought it's the middle of the day when the sun is at its highest, but it's actually towards the end of the day when the building or the home has been baked in the sun for a lot of the day, and now it's really trying to turn up and get the air conditioner going to cool off the house. And then you have the combination of people are still in the offices and the houses need to be cooled. The days of the month of the year is July for the most part, but there's a number in August, a few in September, and a few in June. The dates can slightly vary between capacity and transmission. Next slide, Michael. This just shows a table that shows temperatures in Madison peaks on those hot days. Just gives you a little bit of an indication of where we're peaking at and how that works. We'll go to the next slide. This is a curve of Madison's actual consumption on a hot day. So think of the odometer reading coming into our master meter and how much. This is in megawatt hours, and you can see the curve. And so obviously at nighttime, we're still consuming more than half of what we're peaking at. You can see the peak here is at 25.8 and the low end is at 13.4 at 4 in the morning. So it's just, the goal of time of use is to flatten this curve even more and to encourage people to use more electricity in the evening and at nighttime. The goal is also to not have the curve go up any higher, which could happen. In the next slide, I'm just going to say real quickly that it talks about time of use in solar. That's a pretty complicated topic. We have solar meters and people that are generating solar, and we have time of use. So our first request is that when we do advance this time of use pilot program, that at least initially we're going to need to study solar customers some more before we advance some sort of time of use rate structure for them. Because think of the meter that Jim just talked about. We have 3 registers counting how much electricity is coming in, 4 registers really, or odometers. We would also have to have 4 odometers counting when the electricity is going out. Did they export electricity to us during the peak? During the day? Was it on a weekend when it would be off-peak? So it gets quite complicated, and so we're going to be studying what other utilities are doing. Jim's going to talk for a few minutes about electric vehicle consumption and time of use.
Yeah, so if you just if you think back to Jim's curve that we were looking at before, and he was saying we want to try and flatten that as best we can with the time of use rates. What we also want to try and do is not keep it from going a lot higher. One of the things coming up that may do that is electric vehicles. This chart right here, if you can kind of make it out, is what's called a load profile, and it shows the demand of a meter every 15 minutes, every 15-minute interval. Now, this huge spike here is presumably when somebody charges their electric car. Everything else, this is in July, so all these little peaks down here are typical air conditioning and typical home usage. You can see it goes drastically up when you plug in your car, which is okay. We just want to hopefully shift that to the nighttime. A lot of electric vehicle owners, I think, already know about this. They call the plant often to ask when our current time of use rates are, which we, of course, don't have yet. I think it's built into their thinking that there will be different rates for charging. So it's just a matter of implementing those. I think they would be, hopefully the #1 candidates for moving this, because we would want to move as a lot more electric vehicles come out, and there's a lot more charging like this going on our grid, that we want to hopefully push that towards the nighttime. And the way we would do that is incentivizing it with lower rates at the nighttime. You want to do the pie chart?
Yeah, okay. No, you do the pie chart. That's your pie chart.
Yeah, but this is my pie chart. So this is essentially a breakdown of how much time of the day would each rate be. The peak is about 20 hours for a full week. It's about 12% of your total weekly hours. Our off-peak rates would be 52% of the time. So it's overnight, it's full weekends, it's holidays thrown in there, and then regular is about 36%. You can see the way we're kind of trying to structure this is regular in the beginning of the day, peak during, 3 to 7, back to regular at 7 o'clock, and then off-peak overnight. And I think Jim can explain why we would want to go back to just regular and not switch right off to off-peak at 7.
Sure. So one concern that we have is with time of use rates, you run the risk of everybody being synchronized and everybody setting their thermostats at 7 p.m. to cool off the house a little more. Maybe the thermostat's set at 76 degrees, but at 7 p.m. they set it to 74 degrees, getting ready to cool off the house for the evening. If we had just an on-peak and an off-peak, and that happened at 7 p.m., then the electric vehicle charging people may put their electric vehicle charging at 7 p.m. So by having having peak till 7 p.m., regular from 7 to 11 p.m., and then off-peak at 11 p.m., we're hoping the vast majority of electric vehicle charging or any other consumption that can really be pushed off, whether it's appliance usage at home, that would happen during the off-peak. So we're trying to avoid that synchronicity, and we're trying to avoid having too much come on at the same time. You go to the next slide, Michael. So Jim mentioned the weekday and non-holiday and the weekend rates, when these would occur. We worked with and reviewed a lot of other utilities. There's an interesting presentation with a link here that talks about the elasticity of price. I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Chmurka. I'm pointing to Scott Spelker, who probably took Mr. Chmurka's class. He was my Madison High School Economics 1 teacher who taught me about price elasticity. And basically what that means is how much can you get someone to change their behavior based on a change in price. And industry standard, if you really want to get someone to move, the peak needs to almost be twice what a regular off-peak rate is. So what we're looking at and analyzing right now are possible time of use rates. These are not including dividend of 19.29 cents for regular, 36.95 cents for peak, and 14.45 cents for off-peak. Our regular rate right now is 19.29 or 20.39 cents, depending on how much you're consuming. So the regular rate in time of use and the regular rate we currently charge for 24/7, 365 are about the same. So we go to the next slide, Michael. So Jim had a bunch of meters programmed. Just a few to start. We've now programmed a couple hundred, I think about 300, and we have done some analysis and compared their bill under regular under our regular rate structure versus our time of use. And some are a little higher, some are a little lower. On average, we're a little bit higher right now. We think later on in the fall that will shift back and we'll be almost 100% identical in terms of the amount of revenue that we bring in. If you recall, what was it, Jim, 12% on the pie chart? So it's 12% on the pie chart. How many hours in the week are peak, or the hours in the month are peak? Some customers, as you can see from the column in the middle, consume 11 or 16%. A few consume 20 or 27% of their total consumption are during the peak hours. So those customers tend to pay more in time of use rates, but they're the ones that are putting the most stress on our grid. So any customer that kind of has a more blended consumption will have pretty similar. You can see the first customer, $732 versus $735. It's very, very similar in terms of pricing. If you go to the next slide, Michael, we will need to work with our billing software. So we have the software that controls the meters, and then we have another software that controls the billing. And we will take the data and have a chart like this on the bill. It's similar to what we have. It's just right now we only have one line for consumption. We'll have 4 lines: on peak, off peak, and regular. We would like to and plan on doing this for every customer. So you could still be on the regular rate, same rate for 24/7, 365, but we'll at least be communicating with you and you'll be learning about your consumption. And then we can push information out and say, hey, you know, the average customer in Madison consumes about 18 to 20% of all their kilowatts during the peak. Are you above that or below that? So we'll be able to kind of educate our customers that way. Next steps in the project would be sending those time buckets, those tiers, to all of the meters. We have, how many do you have right now, Jim? About 350?
300, 350, and I just wanted to say, to going a few slides back, those were our first test meters that we did, and then we pushed it out to an entire route, so there's about 300 currently reading time of use, but that does not affect in any way their current consumption or their current billing. Right now, everybody is still at our normal billing rate. This is just for us to see and experiment with.
Yeah, and to be able to gather the data. Like Jim said before, we're not gathering the data until we reprogram those meters. So the next steps would be to reprogram all the meters. Doesn't impact anything, won't impact anybody's bill. We don't lose any data. We'll work on the bill form, like I said, to be able to show all the consumption. We'll research time of use with solar. We'll continue to analyze the rates to make sure that we're close to revenue neutrality. And then we'll come back to council with results and a request to offer this time of use pilot program. We really anticipate 100 or 200 customers out of our, how many residential customers had, Jim? About 4,500?
Something like that.
Yeah, so out of 4,500 residential customers, we anticipate a couple of hundred. One of the tremendous benefits will be that it'll mostly be electric vehicle customers that will be asking for this. We really don't know where the electric vehicles are in town, and as Jim showed you with that load profile, they have a profound effect on our grid. So by giving people an incentive, if you have an EV, to sign up with us, we'll be able to identify where they're located, and that will really help us as we move forward in strengthening and hardening our grid. So with that, we will take questions. Yeah.
Tom, you want to start?
Do I need to have that on?
Yeah.
Can't hear me?
The people at home can't hear you.
I know, sorry.
He had his microphone on off-peak.
I was saving that blue light, probably used a lot of electricity. So you guys put a lot of effort into this, Jim, which is fantastic. It kind of, maybe it also complements a little bit our climate action plan, right, to make things more thorough. But the first thing I want to clarify again is you said initially it's going to be voluntary or it's always going to be voluntary?
That's a council decision.
Okay.
We want to start out voluntary. We want to start collecting the data so we can really look at it. Like those first 200 customers, will they all sync up their thermostats and all of a sudden we see all 100 of these customers have this spike in consumption right at 7 o'clock? How like electric vehicle charging? You have an electric car. I have an electric car. Kathy has an electric car. I charge mine like twice a week. So I don't think there's going to be as much synchronization of electric vehicle charging as there will be of thermostats. But all of that stuff we'll be able to analyze, and then we'll come back to council. At some point, we should seriously consider making it mandatory. When that is, will be up to council. The investor-owned utilities just recently adopted a program a month or so ago. It's a very simple, basic program, and it's like, hey, we have it's like they took the goalposts and they made it like that wide. Ours are wider to actually encourage a change in consumption. They did this, and I am sure that they're doing it just as a way to identify where these electric vehicles are, because we get calls 3-4 times a week asking us when our time use rates are, and it's all from electric vehicles. And we've actually been taking all the names down so we can call them up and say, hey, we have that program now.
But the one thing to think about is that you have such a variation in the borough of residents and how they live, right? You have a lot of families, their kids come home from school at 3 o'clock, the house has to be temperature controlled. The oven's gonna go on so that they cook. And we're promoting everybody to move voluntarily to electricity. We wanna have heat pumps, we wanna have electric stoves, electric hot water heaters, so there's going to be a lot of use that's just kind of a necessity for your home. And a lot of people work from home now, so you can't really say you're only turning on your thermostat at 7 o'clock. That's how you and I used to live. Now a lot of people even come home earlier than that. So there's going to be some challenges for people to actually fall within these limits. And then the rate goes up a lot. 36 cents is not cheap. At night, I would say, maybe you're giving me more of a discount than just going down 10% from 17 cents to 15 cents. Just a thought. If you want to really incentivize people, you know I'm like that, right?
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
a 20% drop off the regular rate, and that's
without the
50%
dividend.
of the time, Jim. The
That's
off-peak
without the
rates,
dividend.
the off-peak rates are for 52% of the hours in a week.
Right.
So it's all day on the weekend. And if we push out these time of use buckets to the meters, and then we start showing people their consumption, they can very easily sit there with a calculator and figure out, am I going to be a benefactor of time of use rates or am I not? We will definitely have to change over the next 5 or 10 years, whatever time of use program we offer. Somewhere along the way, the whole grid is anticipating shifting to a winter peak, which is different right now. Right now, we're a summer peak. Some utilities do peak in the winter. We don't. In our grid, our regional grid, PJM, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, is a summer peaking area, but there are other areas that peak in the winter. Up in Vermont is
Well, 90% of the homes in the winter use natural gas or oil. They're not using electricity yet. But if we follow that model, maybe 50% of the homes in 10 years. So a question I have, and maybe you guys thought about this, it just didn't come up tonight. We're saying we're going to put some stress on our system potentially by more use of electricity at certain times of the day. Are we going to upgrade our grid? Are we going to make an investment in our most valuable income generating business or asset? So we're going to have to fix that too, right? As eventually we're all going to have, even if it's at night, if out of the 4,500 homes you have 3,500 electric cars and everybody wants to charge at 11:01. Well, you got to be ready for that at 11:01.
we could double our don't quote me on this, Alex. We could almost double the amount of electricity we deliver to homes.
Okay.
If they consumed it at certain times.
Right.
So, but to your point, we need to know where the electric vehicles are, because if there are 4 electric vehicles plugged in and they're all on the same transformer on the utility pole and they all plug in at the same time, poof.
Right.
So, or that if we see that, we can go and say, hey, we need to replace that transformer with a larger size transformer, or split those off onto multiple transformers so we don't have a strain on the system. So we will absolutely be increasing and hardening the distribution system.
We don't want to scare people and say, oh, don't get an electric car because your block electricity system might blow up.
No, we want
It's not going to be like that. And really, it's only drawing 40 amps. It's like a dryer. If you have an electric dryer.
If you looked at that load profile, what's different is that your air conditioner cycles on and off. When you plug that car in, for me, I plug my car in and it goes for 3, 4, 5 hours.
It could go for 7.
That's steady juice going through, not on, off. So that's a significant difference, which is why you saw in that load profile such a significant spike. It almost looked like a tower or skyscraper, right?
Right. Yeah, the intent is great. And I think you're going to get people who will say, I live that lifestyle, and I'm going to definitely benefit from that. But there's going to be some people, and seniors, who are home all day long. I don't know how they manage to do whatever we're suggesting for them to do. So it's probably going to get to more analysis once you start to collect all this data, and then you'll come back and say, okay, this was great, this time it didn't really work. And but we want to incentivize people still to go out and convert as much as possible.
If we can get a couple more.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
John?
1,000 questions.
Will people, initially you're going to ask for volunteers, you're going to have volunteers participate. Will people over time be able to dynamically choose which option they can expect to use?
So if we do a pilot program, from a utility billing standpoint, we don't want someone changing month or month. So we're probably going to say, if you select this, please stick with it for a year. And as you saw, one customer was $732 versus $735, and that was for like a month and a half, right, Jim? So it could be de minimis for the customer. And if we get them the information and they sit on their bill and they sit there and they look at it and they go, oh, I'm actually going to save money, they're going to naturally want to switch to that. So, but we can't have people switching every week or every month between the two. We need to have some sort of stability.
Why? Why can't you do
Why?
Yeah, why can't you do that?
Because it's a challenge, and we would actually have to do a final bill for them and calculate, here's your bill up until today, and now you've switched to the different rate structure, so we're going to send you a bill for the last 15 days, and now we're going to start at this point and use a different rate structure. So it's almost like you moving out of your house and having to do a final bill and then recalculating it. So, yep. Right.
Come back, Rachel, to you.
Thank you, Jim and Jim, for this great presentation. Clearly, a lot of thought has gone into this, and thank you to the volunteers that you mentioned who represent a lot of different committees and volunteers, in different, between utility advisory, climate action, sustainable Madison. It's been a great team effort. So, something that I'm conceptually having a hard time reconciling is the idea here is to use price incentives or elasticity to change people's behavior. And yet, we also want this to be revenue neutral, so very little change in the outcome. So, for instance, as people shift more of their consumption to off-peak times to save money, and their bills go down, how will this continue to be revenue neutral? Should we anticipate less and less usage? I get that there's a lot of factors here, but what's the sort of high-level thinking about how to balance this over time?
So I think the time of use rates, the actual rates, will have to change a little more frequently than our rates, which have been the same for, what, Jim, like
2011.
2011, since 2011, number one. Number two, where we may see a reduction in revenue on a per kilowatt basis, we may make up for it in the fact that we have more and more EV charging and more electrification. So that's kind of a win-win in that we're staying revenue neutral, yet we're flattening that curve or not allowing the peak to spike. So it's going to take some time. Now, when I initially started working on this, I thought, wow, the revenue of our utility must fluctuate a lot year after year. It's a hot summer, it's a cold summer, it's a rainy summer, it's this, it's that. It's surprisingly stable, within 2 or 3% a difference of revenue every year, even when we have office buildings that were closed or underutilized. So, I think it's going to be not as dramatic, but we'll have to monitor it for sure.
And then my follow-up question has to do with solar customers who I think there's a natural pairing of people who buy EVs. They think, okay, I'm going to gas up my car for free with the panels on my roof. And so you're going to be cutting out a big subset of potential pilot program users by saying, yes, you have an EV, but you can't participate in the first round because this is too complex to monitor net metering, power in and power out from your meter. So I understand that we can't let perfect be the enemy of the good here and solve all of that before rolling out the pilot program. We need to maybe bite off only as much as we can chew as a small, no offense, but a small utility with just their limited staff hours and capacity to do this. But I just want to encourage us to be really thinking about how what information we're not getting by excluding solar customers, because they will be the EV users, and hopefully we'll have, right now we have 95 or some, maybe less than 100 solar panel customers in town. So it's a small subset of people, but I think you'd find there was a big overlap with the 100 people that might have signed up to be voluntary users. So I hope we can focus over the coming year about bringing those people into the program, because I think there's going to be popularity there.
Is Peter one of the customers that we've actually been tracking since May?
Yes.
So Peter Freed, he knows that we track. So we switched him to time of use. He's got solar panels. He just bought his new electric vehicle. He texted me and said pretty much exactly what you just said. Why am I being excluded from this initially? It might just take us a few more months before we can say, let's bring them in. What we're seeing, though, is that the solar customers who are already paying us at times zero for the entire year are actually going to get even more benefit if we set up the solar, the time of use rates where if they take electricity from us or they give electricity to us, it's the same rate. In other words, that off-peak rate of 15 cents. Was it 15 cents? Yeah, 15 cents. If it's 15 cents, whether they give it to us or we take it, or during the peak, if it's 36 cents, whether they give it to us or we take it, we're actually seeing that's the one customer who wasn't equal. It's the one customer that's making more because they generate electricity when the sun is up, and the sun is up during the peak time from 3 to 7 p.m. So we're kind of trying to work through that. We only have like 2 houses on it, so we're at least right in the very, very beginning. But yeah, I hear you. Jim, don't be a chicken. Let's try it.
Well, the follow-on to that is that those are also customers that are most likely to have batteries, right? And if part of the goal of this program is to encourage residences or commercial customers to install batteries for peak load shaving or, other reasons, then again, that's your natural customer base for this.
Yeah.
So.
And I want to clarify, this is only for residential customers right now. And you have someone like Kathy Coltis who couldn't put a solar panel on her house, or Pete Tashima. I talked to Pete Tashima last week. He had the folks come out, and he just says, I don't want to cut my trees down. Well, he could put a battery in and benefit from this time of use. And it would benefit the grid, and it would, of course, benefit him with reliability.
Thanks, Jim.
Eric, any questions?
I think Jim covered most of my questions. The one thing that I will say, Jim, one thing to look at is some utilities do a single import rate, right? Yep. Which is, you could still be on time of use when you're pulling from the grid, but we only give you a single rate on what you export to the grid for solar.
And that is
And
viable?
sometimes it's not the peak rate. Even though we're drawing the extra power during the peak sunny times, sometimes you get the off-peak.
Yeah,
off-peak rate.
If we just gave them the regular rate, they'll do better on the weekends. Saturday and Sunday, they're only getting 15 cents on the export. So we also do need, and we've talked about this a little bit, we do need to revisit, some sort of way we charge solar customers in that minimum charge that we have of $4.86. $4.86 a month for our customer service charge. It's not a lot, but right now a solar customer can take the kilowatt hour credit that they generate and wipe that out. I think we should look, and we're trying to figure out, we can do it with our billing software, that stays, that they can build up a credit over here, but they have to pay us a whopping $4.86 a month. And I will tell them, you don't have to mail that in every month, but that there would be some fee that they are charged because they are connected to our system. They're getting bills, the infrastructure, everything.
You got to maintain a couple other questions. I want to. Rachel touched on one thing I was thinking about also is the revenue neutral, because overall, if it was revenue neutral, no one's going to do it. But is it possibly more net neutral that we would reduce our peak demand charges, and so revenue may go down, but our expenses may also go down? Is
Correct. Correct, yes, absolutely. So, our 40% of our electricity is our top 50 customers. So that's not residential customers, right? That's pump stations, that's Giralda Farms and stuff like that. So, a more impactful time of use rate will be when we go to commercial and offer it to commercials where they have a building system software. I mean, I know, Mayor, when you worked at the YMCA, you would just go and push the thermostat up a few degrees on a hot day. But they can actually have more of an impact regionally. But we really wanted to get this out because we think it's a great way to identify that potential very localized grid stressor with electric vehicles.
And then our top users reduce their consumption enough on weekends, on holidays, that really becomes a non-peak event. So it makes sense to have that separation for weekends and holidays.
Can we pump out the time of use to all the meters, Jim? Even the A3 alphas and the commercial ones?
We can't. So Jim says A3 alpha, those are typically commercial meters. Currently, we can't do that yet. We had a big holdup with even the residential meters, and it was something to do with the AMI company we work with, They had to figure out the firmware stuff. It was a little bit over my head, but they figured it out, and that's when we could push to the residential meters. They're currently working with Honeywell, the manufacturer of the meter, how to push it out to the A3 meters. So long story short, soon enough we'll be able to test with commercial meters, but not just yet.
Yep. And actually, two more things I'll go back to.
Thank you.
The key really to see how this will work is getting people to volunteer because, all right, so you threw up those accounts and showed what the difference is, and it's very clear that if you sign up for that program and don't change your habits, you shouldn't sign up for the program. So you need to sign up for the program, change your habits to shift that power off the peak time, and that's where your savings come because it was, for the most part, people's rates were going up, not significantly, but it is the change of habits that will make the difference.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, your very small data set, actually, it wasn't revenue neutral. It actually generated a little more revenue. Do we think that a larger data set's going to drive a different result there, or we also looking at this as short term, there may be little variability, but longer term, people change their behaviors, things might go down in the medium term, right? But then the long term is people are adopting more electric cars, more heat pumps, more electrification, and so the net 5-10 years out is we're off to the races with more revenue than we have today, not the 1 or 2% variation we've seen for the last 10 years. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is that, remember that data set is going from May until August 9th or 10th.
Right, so if we start this now, we kind of lose
summertime,
all the summer peak.
when we have, in the fall and in the spring, I'm sure we would be, time of use would be a significant net winner. So that data set is not only the number of meters we're looking at, but it's over an entire 365-day year.
Great.
I also think, I wanted to say that I think just putting it on everybody's bill without charging them yet, but just kind of introducing the idea. This is kind of baby steps, even for us and certainly for everybody getting to know it. What does peak mean? What does off-peak mean? What are these times? Just kind of showing it to people as a kind of first step with it before they even start to consider would I do better or worse. And I think even from there we could put something on our website, a bill cruncher. Here's what your bill is currently, here's what it would be time of use. You can kind of compare and contrast that way. But I think right now, obviously the electrical vehicle owners, they're all going to be on board. Everybody else, just kind of get used to the idea for now anyway.
But it's the little thing, right? Like I work from home. I can pre-cool my house before 3 o'clock hits. And if it goes up an extra couple of degrees while I'm sitting there between 3 and 5, well, then so be it. But, if everybody did that, then, you'd be okay. You could pre-cool the house. You could pre-cool the house before the kids come home if you have a smart thermostat.
Exactly. We think that all of that is going to be coming out and being learned. And I want to point out that we're one of only a couple of utilities in this state that all customers have AMI meters. There's a couple of other municipal electric utilities, but the investor-owned utilities don't have that. If you volunteer for that new program that I was talking about, Tom, where the goals just get spread a little bit, they're saying, oh, okay, great, we'll be in to install your new meter next week. Jim went around and changed all the meters. So we're already way ahead on that, and we're way ahead on having what I think is going to be a more advanced time of use structure. And for us, it's out there. It's in California. It's in other places. But for New Jersey, we're going to be one of the first. Definitely the first municipal electric utility.
Rachel?
Just one last question. I'm getting the feeling that a driving factor in wanting to do this is to help those EV charging customers kind of come out of the woodwork a little bit and say, I have a charging station. But with something that is a significant impact to our infrastructure, especially as EVs, we've already reached a tipping point in the market in terms of adoption of EVs. Can we take other measures as a utility to identify who those customers are instead of just sort of luring them to come forward by saying, we'll offer you these, beneficial rates? How come we can't do more to figure out who's installed a charging station?
It's possible. It changes all the time, right? Kathy just got her, have you got your plug yet? Your next week? So she just got her plug this week. So some of it is that we're going to be finding out way before we can crunch data.
I'll point out that Kathy got a permit for hers, and many customers don't.
Thank you.
So what's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. So there is a way to crunch data and try to identify those customers. One of our best ways to identify it is Jim, because he'll come in and say, that the guy on Green Village Road just got that really cool new, Ford Mustang EV. Have you seen it? He knows, you know a lot about what's going on in town, Jim, let me tell you.
But yeah, permits, so those that do it right, we find out where they are. It's similar to some pumps that go into our sanitary instead of into storm.
But there's electricians that'll say, oh, you don't need a permit for this. I can do that work for you in 2 hours, no permit required. I just feel like we need to do more to educate our contractors and our customers about what our needs are.
And I think we would probably start with making sure that since we're encouraging people to switch, these are the steps you need to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, so next steps you're going to do, is it going to be a little more analysis and then come back with what you think will be the actual rate structure?
Yep, we'll analyze some more solar, we'll research solar, we'll push out those time buckets to all the different meters, and we'll do some more, do some more number crunching. But I'm lean towards saying, hey, it's a pilot program, let's get it out sooner.
Yeah,
right?
I would like to get it out sooner. And so as soon as you've got the comfort level with the rate structure, if you've seems like you've got a good handle on the hours that it would be, and if you're comfortable with the actual different rates, I'm wondering, one of the things I was in the nitpicking level is for the someone that's on time of day, whether you have something called regular as opposed to have peak, off peak, and I don't know what
it could be peak, off peak, and super peak.
I don't know what the third one is, but I might be nitpicking, but it is, and whether that actual matches our regular rate with the other customers. So, yeah.
So one thing we do have to do is get the billing software to do this, right? And so that's going to take a little bit of time. Our billing software company is great, and they've been thinking about it, and they've kind of done some demos on that. So that's another important step for us to be able to, A, put that chart up, but B, actually be able to sign people up and put that rate code in and have that bill print out properly. So that's probably a couple months for that.
Right, so I think what I'm hearing is consensus that, move forward, move quickly, come back with this. Obviously, by the time it rolls out, it's going to be post-cooling season. So, we'll have a little time to recruit the pilot customers and have it in place before we start turning those air conditioners next season.
Yep.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Excellent. We now move on for ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Mayor, can I just say one more thing? It's a totally off-topic thing, but I just, in terms of Madisonians that we lost recently, I wanted to mention my good friend Ryan Pincus. We grew up together in this town, and we went to school together in this town, and he was a phenomenal wrestler for this town, and he passed about 10 days ago. So I just wanted to have his name said here. He was a great guy, and I'll always miss him.
Thank you for sharing. I had heard about Ryan and forgot to, but so Ryan and his family are in our thoughts. Thank you for taking that time. Okay. Ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
The ordinance is scheduled for hearing, were introduced by title and passed on the first reading at the regular meeting of the council held July the 24th, 2023. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up ordinances for second reading. I ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title. Ordinance 41-2023.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating an additional $462,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund for the potable water well improvements.
I open the hearing on ordinance 41. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 41-2023.
Mayor, I second the ordinance.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover? Yes. Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
I declare ordinance 41-2023 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 42-2023.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $60,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund to purchase windows, doors, and related improvements for the Department of Public Works garage.
I open the hearing for an ordinance 42. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 42-2023.
Any council discussion? Ms. Rachel.
I'm so pleased that we're finally going forward with this. We've been talking about improving the envelope at the Public Works garage for some time, and we've been doing it in bits and pieces, and I'm hopeful this is the last piece to finish the window replacement. I'm just glad to know that the borough is continuing to pursue energy efficiency measures to save costs and cut carbon pollution.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover? Yes. Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 42-2023 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 43-2023.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $56,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund to purchase an electric zero-turn mower and accessories for the Department of Public Works.
I open the hearing on ordinance 43. Anyone wish to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 43-2023.
Council discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover? Yes. Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 43-2023 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 44-2023.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $55,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund to purchase a Jeep and accessories for the Department of Public Works.
I open the hearing on ordinance 44. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 44-2023.
Any council discussion?
May I say something? I want to say something.
It's up to you.
So I'm hoping that I know that this utility Jeep is important for the borough, and we've already had discussions with our Department of Public Works head that when we can possibly find some vehicles and other apparatus for the DPW that will be more environmentally friendly, electric, that we're going to continue to search for those options. But we had talked to Ken a few times, Rachel and I, why he needs this right now, just to be ready for emergencies in the winter and also for maintenance around the community. He didn't think an electric Jeep was suitable yet for the community, but they're probably coming, that option.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Ken has been, and his colleagues in the Public Works Department, Bob Duffy, they've really been open to working towards achieving, more electrification, plug-in electric vehicles. We can see the electric zero-turn mower is on the agenda tonight. And I think the nature of the climate action process is that we improve where we can, and where the equipment is not available yet or can't do the job we need it to do, and the time's not right to change the equipment type, we don't want to put that ahead of what our department heads need. So I hope the Department of Public Works continues to be open to electrifying, and we're glad to get them this Jeep when they need it, even though it's a gas-powered vehicle. We're going to keep talking about, more vehicles that we can upgrade in the years to come.
Very good. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 44-2023 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish the notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with law. We now move on to our second of invitations for public comment. This is when you may comment on any topic. Again, the same rules apply. Step up to the lectern, state your name, address, write the same on the clipboard, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but we will give you that 1 minute grace period. Kathy.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Cacavalli, 82 Central Avenue, Madison, tonight representing the Friends of the Drew Forest. In addition to what Mayor Conley said earlier about the late Ed Lloyd, I'd like to add a heartfelt note of appreciation on behalf of the Friends. Recognized as a dedicated champion of climate action by Governor Phil Murphy, here in Madison, Lloyd was known for keeping up the good fight. For the last 13 months, he donated his time as the Friends legal advisor, helping us file an amicus or Friends of the Court brief so that we could detail the forest's environmental significance as part of an ongoing legal action between Drew University and the Borough of Madison. Ed not only agreed to work with us, said Lydia Chambers, co-chair of the Friends, he wrote a brief that made our amicus status a slam dunk at the August 2022 hearing. Judy Kroll, the Friends' other co-chair, says that Lloyd had an impeccable sense of legal timing. He knew when to ask the judge to grant us access to Drew campus for a study of endangered bats. He waited, and we worried. But when the moment was right, the request was granted immediately. Thank you, Ed. And that brings me to my other topic for tonight, bats. We have discussed many of the important services that the forest performs for our town and region: temperature moderation, clean air, clean water supply, to name just a few. We were interested in whether the Drew Forest is an important habitat for bats. Why care about bats? Besides being intelligent and adaptable creatures, our bats in New Jersey are the only major predators of night-flying insects. A single little brown bat will eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes, or mosquito-sized insects, in an hour, or 3,000 a night. One bat. This is, of course, beneficial to all of us and also important to agriculture. The 6 species we have in New Jersey hibernate in the winter when there aren't insects, but spend the summer roosting in trees, often under loose or shaggy bark. There are also 3 bat species who migrate north and spend the summer here. Bats are small and nocturnal, so to learn about these creatures in the Drew Woods, the Friends commissioned a study by a specialized company who used acoustic bat detectors, recording for 6 nights in 5 sites in the Drew Forest. The answer to whether the Drew Forest provides important habitat for bats is a resounding yes. 11,734 bat calls were recorded. These included big brown, silver-haired, eastern, hoary, and evening species of bats. A bat study done for Drew in 2021 had also recorded tricolored bats, who are close to being listed as federally endangered.
1 minute.
These bat species include both year-round New Jersey residents and summer migrants. So, although when you go into the Drew Forest, you can't tell there are any bats at all, it is home to thousands of bats. You can see very old silver maples with shaggy bark that provide great roosting spots. Bats can't live downtown, or possibly not in your neighborhood. They can't live just anywhere, but we know they seek out the Drew Forest. Just one more reason it needs to be protected. As always, your ongoing efforts to achieve that are appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Great to the update on the bats, and thank you for your words on Ed Lloyd. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Mike.
Hey, Michael Martinez, 5 Independence Court. I promise I actually was not planning on speaking tonight. Jim, your presentation caused my heart rate to go up. So, Jim, a question for you, and it's not up here anymore. The rates were 16 cents, and peak is going to 38 cents?
So, Mike, if you capture the questions, and then Jim can answer them all together. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, for me, the bottom line is we're in the electrical business, and it's common knowledge that the town captures a pretty significant spread between what we charge and what we earn. On the electrical utility, it's $6 to $7 million a year. I think many people, as a result, feel that electrical rates are already pretty high. So again, Jim can clarify it, but to go from 18 to 38 for running your air conditioning on a very hot day, I don't think will go over too well. For me, and I'll actually echo what Tom was saying, which I think is the much more appropriate conversation that we should be having is, do we have the capacity to absorb this increased behavior and the electrical load that's coming on the back of a lot of what you've been discussing for the last couple of years and what you're recommending? We're in the electrical business. I think we should, accept and be willing to take on higher demand. So I don't know. I'm just confused by the conversation. I would say, and just my last question is, I really struggle. I walk my dog, pretty late at night. I see all the electrical vehicles plugged in, right? So if the electrical, if the charging is already happening at night, which would be my assumption, would be my sort of hypothesis, it's not really changing behavior. It just amounts to a discount for some and a surcharge for others. That's how you get to the the revenue neutral. So anyway, I guess my question, I'll end with the question, which is again, let's take this past week, 5 or 6 o'clock in the middle of the day, you're getting 95 degree heat. Is the rate going up by 45%? Or, it's actually close to double, right? If it's 18 to 38, which is what I think I saw. I'd just love to be clear on that. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
I forgot to write my name.
Yep.
As I started out, Mayor, the program will be voluntary. Residents will have the opportunity to see their consumption. So there's no obligation, and there may never be obligation. Tom asked, what's the end result of this? Where is this going to end up? It may be that it always stays voluntary. So,
and if it's voluntary, you will volunteer because you're
going to save money.
You're going to save money.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. And again, you're doing some analysis, and the rates we saw may be the final one, or with additional analysis, you may be coming back when we approve this program with slightly different rates. Could be a possibility too.
Correct. If we do, let's say we have 100 customers that do it for a year, and over the year we collect the data for every customer, we're going to be able to look and see. And it would be great if we could identify customers that are actually consuming a lot in peak. And maybe it's not having a time of use, a mandated time of use rate, but it's reaching out to them and saying, hey, you're above average on your consumption during this time. It puts stress on the grid. We could actually watch and monitor and see as different types of equipment are installed in homes and see what the difference is. It's really an opportunity for us to learn and an opportunity for us ultimately to strengthen our distribution system and make sure we're there when people need the electricity.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? Step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. We now move on to introduction of ordinances, which there are none. So we will go on to the consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move approval of the resolutions 221-2023 to 245-2023.
Second.
Any discussion or any that need to be pulled? I do have one quick question on the, somewhat related to the Jeep. The Interceptor is a gas vehicle.
Yeah, I was actually just going to clarify that.
Yeah.
So, yes, on 235, that vehicle is a hybrid that will be used for, as like a shift supervisor vehicle. And the 236 is not a hybrid. Like Ken O'Brien, Chief Misha has been a great supporter of our efforts to electrify and get hybrids. I guess it was last year, Ford took the factory that does the hybrid Interceptors offline. So we actually have 2 hybrids on order that haven't come in yet from last year's order. And then these are this year's order. So in order to make sure that our police department has the vehicles that they need, over the 75% of the vehicles we ordered over the last 2 years will be hybrids. Unfortunately, we've just got to move forward with this one. And there's no telling when last year's cars are going to come in or when we'll have the availability of the new hybrids because of the specialized nature of those vehicles. So thank you for bringing it up, Mayor.
Yep, thank you.
Mayor, just one thought. If you notice, the 2022 vehicle is the hybrid. It took us 2 years to get it.
Right.
So we're buying.
Oh, and that's not the ones we ordered last year.
No.
So, but those remain on order, and they may be 23s or 24s by the time we get them. But the police department's making it work to make sure that we balance both those commitments. So.
And so like the Jeep, we need a vehicle, and we're doing what we have to do.
Right. And the good news is that the admin vehicle will have far fewer miles driven than a regular patrol vehicle. So from a fleet mileage perspective, it's the right car or the right vehicle to have as a gas-powered vehicle.
Thank you. Any other comments, Tom?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mayor. 226, 2023. So we're rejecting the bids, the one bid, the submission for the Cook Avenue parking lot reconstruction. Maybe this is the closer number, unfortunately, than what we budgeted. It's a shame, but you say no. And
The lowest bid came in $700,000 over the estimate.
over, right? I'm saying maybe that's going to be the real cost.
We're hoping it may be somewhere between or lower. Yeah.
So my point there is maybe this is an opportunity for us to just step back, do a reset, and really analyze what we're trying to gain in the borough for parking as we continue to bring potentially more residential places downtown. Maybe there's something else we need to do with some of this money. Resurface the Cook Avenue lot, but to just renovate it for that cost, if it comes out to be that cost, that's a very expensive renovation just to change the directional traffic in there and put up some new lights. So it might be an opportunity for us to say, okay, what do we really want to accomplish for the whole borough in the central business district to be able to accommodate more cars, whether it's shoppers, which we hope it is, or residents who we're probably going to add to the downtown. I mean, over the course of time, there's going to be some changes to some of the building structures in town. So just my 2 cents. I don't know what the limit should be.
Yep. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Pudis?
Yes.
All right, there is no unfinished business. The approval of vouchers. Will the clerk please read the voucher totals?
From the current fund, $850,341.44. From the general capital fund, $400,652.89. Electric operating fund, $459,727.82. The electric capital fund, $100,583.66. From the water operating fund, $59,670.85, and from the water capital fund, $42,000 even. From the trust, $245,869.35, with a total of $2,158,846.01.
Mayor, I move payment of the vouchers.
Second.
Any discussion?
I saw the fees that we're paying for recycling, removing the recycling from the borough. We used to make money on that. You think there's some opportunity now, and we're just not on top of it, that the paper waste actually has a little value with these recyclers? And I don't know about policy, but you were more well versed in that too than me.
Well, don't we get over $6,000 in revenue from selling our cardboard and paper? There actually is value in that.
But we have to pick it up. It has to be picked up, though. So.
Pick it up, so we don't make money, but it offsets our cost to pick it up?
Yeah.
We do? Yes. Okay. That's all I wanted.
Two issues with China stuff paper, so the value drop, and then there's also an issue with contamination that someone puts a high box into the paper and cardboard that disqualifies contamination because they don't go to get so the contamination, but we are positive revenue for metal and paper.
It's not changing now, it's going to be
And part of what helps us is, unlike many towns, we have separate pickups. If it was all mixed together, the value would go down greatly. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Putis?
Yes.
All right, there is no new business. John is not here tonight, so John Forte is not here tonight, so it falls back to you, Tom, for a
Okay, Mayor, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
second.
Second.
Thank you all. We'll see you in a month.